Trust God with your life. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. I had a very long flight over the weekend. I was running all over the place, and I just didn't have time to post my daily devotionals. But what I will tell you is this, that I did post very powerful and very meaningful videos. 2 testimonies that will change your life. One priest talking to you guys about confession. Why do we go to confession? How does he feel about you in confession? Maybe you feel a little funny going, no big deal. No big deal. I'm also going to post exactly what happens during confession. I posted it on my YouTube if you'd like to take a look, but if you're on my Instagram or my TikTok, I haven't done that yet, and it would be my absolute pleasure to explain to you the steps so that when you do go, it's easy for you, and I'm telling you, it's going to make you feel good. The other one I posted was of Hernandez. He's amazing, and he talks about how nobody can tell you about what you've done in your past. It's not their business, and they have no right to point their fingers at you. Why? Because nobody can point their fingers at you unless their own hands are clean, and nobody's hands are clean. I'm not perfect. I've gossiped when I was younger. I've screamed and yelled at my brothers and my mom and my dad. I've went against people because I was angry with them instead of forgiving them when they would hurt me. There's so many little things that I did that were not right, but they were things that could cause me to go to hell because I was not nice. Right? I was young. I didn't know any better. I did drugs. I had sex before marriage. I made these mistakes, but they're sins, and they'll send you to hell, and you got to go to confession. But I'm not perfect, but I'm definitely not going to point my finger at anybody else, because just as imperfect as I am, they're not perfect either. So we're all working towards being the best we can be in the image of Christ. So those videos, powerful, and I really hope the Lord God pushes you, and the Holy Spirit pushes you, and God pushes you to watch them. Because every single video I post, I've already watched myself. And every single video I post, the Holy Spirit will either bring to me, or they're a history of something I've watched, and they've helped me, and I want to help you. It's all for you. Everything I'm doing is for you. Okay? So Romans 4 verse 16. Trust God with your life. What does it say? It says, therefore, the promise is the outcome of faith, and depends on faith, in order that it might be given as an act of grace. Well, what am I trying to say today in Romans 4 verse 16? Let's break it down. Therefore, inheriting the promise, receiving that promise from God, right, is the outcome of faith. It's the outcome of faith, and depends entirely, not a little bit, it depends entirely on faith, that it might be given as an act of grace. What is grace, T? I explained it in number 5. I explained it in number 555. Go watch those videos. I explained it also as 5 being grace, as being unmerited favor. What's unmerited? We don't deserve it, but he's gracious to us. What did I call my little cat? Yana. What does that mean? God is gracious. It's the meaning of her name. Because every time I look at her, I'm gracious to have her. And God is gracious for pushing me to get her when I didn't want a second kitten, because I didn't want to be the cat lady. But I needed to get her. The Lord of God and the Holy Spirit said, you got to get another cat for Liam. He needs a love. I was like, okay. And they love each other. I would have never gotten it if the Holy Spirit didn't tell me to. Forced me to do it. And I love her. Oh my God. No, she's a talker. All right. I feel like he's preparing me for my children, because he's such a boy and she's such a girl, and she's a girl, and he's just such a little tiger. I love him. All right. Trust God with your life. Early in my Christian walk, okay, this is my grandparents both went to the churches, they were big in the churches. My grandmother on my dad's side, she would cook. She was involved in everything that happened, all the events, right? And then I went to CCD, I went to communion. My other grandmother was always there with me. She'd always be bringing me to the thrift shops, maybe donating to the churches and the different activities that we would have. I was very involved when I was young. Okay, and my brothers were kind to me, and my parents were good to me, and my family was good to me, and I was filled with a lot of love. But then as I got older, things had started to change, right? People are nice to us when we're young, but as we get older, say we become maybe a little bit more privileged, where we receive more, or we are given more favor by someone, whether a teacher, a friend, or a family member, right? And it's like, that's when the enviness starts. That's when the jealousy starts. That's when the issues start. Or when people grow up and they have issues, and, you know, I may be a thinner girl, but another girl may be a little bit heavier because of the, you know, whatever. It could be hereditary, or it could be because of issues that she's dealt with from the pain, from the people that surrounded her and her upbringing. And it's like people hurt her, or, you know, I'm trying to give you examples. But like, we start out in a beautiful, in my particular situation, I started out with a lot of love. But then as I got older, people started to treat me differently, right? And it was because of things that I did that they didn't agree with. So if they didn't agree with the things that I chose to do in my life, then I was no good, or I was bad, because it was their opinion of what my behavior or what my actions were. They thought they knew what was best for me. But this was my path. This was the path that the Lord our God gave me. And this is the path that was going to help me to embark on the true will that God had for my life. But everybody had their opinion of me, of what I was doing, of who I was with, of where I was going, of everybody was in my business. Happens to you? It happens. Do I forgive them? Of course. But these things, people have a lot to say about others and what they should do and how they should live their lives. And it's like, I don't even think I ever remember ever looking at anybody else's life and what they were up to, because it was no concern of mine. But sometimes people concern themselves so much with you. Do we know why? No. Their opinion, does it matter? Maybe at times it did, maybe at times it didn't. But at the end of the day, it's really ultimately God's decision what happens with your life, right? So, where am I going with this? Early in my Christian walk, I continually worked at trying to change things by myself. All these people would come at me, all these different situations, all these different experiences would come at me, right? And it's like, all right, I can change these people. I can show them that they're wrong. I can show them that, you know, they don't have a say, or I can show them that, you know, that they're wrong about this person or this thing, or their behavior towards me is not nice, right? And I thought I could do it myself, right? I continue working at trying to change things by myself. But many of the changes that had come about in my life began the day I finally realized that only God could make those changes. And what happened? 2010, I moved to Manhattan, right? I moved to Queens, and I started living in Queens, and people still had weird behaviors. Once I got into New York City, it was like a mosh pit of just personality, culture, and everybody had an opinion of everybody, and everybody had a walk and a thought, and it had something to say. It was like, whoa, and I was not used to this, right? Even in college in Albany, it wasn't as bad as it was in Manhattan, New York City, and Queens, like a melting pot. So I began to go to church because I simply sat in the presence of God, and that was the place that brought me the most peace, because in my heart, I was good. I didn't have opinions of other people. I didn't care what other people were doing as long as they weren't hurting themselves, because I don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, because I have a big heart and I care about people. So if I see someone getting hurt, I'm going to involve myself, because I want to take control of that person, because they clearly don't have control of themselves. But other than that, I never got into anybody's business, because it's not my business to get into your business unless you bring it to me and ask me what I can do to help you, or you want my opinion on it. And even when I give people my opinion, they wouldn't take it. So it was like, where am I going to find the most peace, T? Where? I'm going to go to church. So that day I simply sat in the presence of God, weeping and telling him, if you don't change me, Lord, I am never going to be different, because I have done everything anybody can do to change. I have tried everything I know. I have worked every formula. God, I have rebuked every devil. I have fasted. I have prayed. I have cried. I have begged. I have pleaded. I can't handle these people. There's too many different cultures and personalities, and the different ways in which they're nasty and cruel and mean, or they act really nice with me, but behind closed doors they're not, or I find out that they're really not. And none of it has worked. The kindness I've shown them, the explanations I've tried to explain to them on how they're being rude or wrong, the way that I'm catching people, and then they're saying sorry, but then they're doing it again. So Lord, you will have to take me the way I am, and I will have to stay this way forever. If I'm ever going to be different, you have to change me, because I give up. When I finished talking, the Holy Spirit spoke in my heart. Good. Now I can finally do something. And I was like, what was that? I knew I had gifts. I knew I was different. Did I share this with people? No. Did I really even understand what I had myself up at that time? Not really. I was learning, right? I finally reached the point where I didn't care whether my family, whether my friends, whether my boyfriends liked me, wanted to be with me, didn't want to be around me, friends, boyfriends, colleagues, acquaintances, neighbors, people at the Dunkin' Donuts, girls in the restroom chose to speak to me or speak to the other girl. I'm taking a photo maybe for my outfit or something, and somebody's giving me a dirty look from behind. I mean, I couldn't win. There was no niceness, there was no purity, there was no kindness. And when there was, I was concerned. Are they really nice? Is that, I hope so. I get really excited, like, oh, I met a nice girl, finally. Somebody like me. Now, stay with me. I finally come to the place where I didn't care whether I was married, whether I had a long-term boyfriend, whether I was gonna have children. I didn't care. I didn't care if that changed or not. I just wanted some peace. I finally realized that I would have to stop trying to change everything and everyone around me, including myself at times, and let God handle it if I was ever going to have peace. You're never going to enjoy the promise of the new life in Romans 4 verse 16. Jesus died to give you until you change the way that you think. It's not about what you can do. It's about what Jesus has done for you. Trying to face all the challenges of everyday life can cause you to face and focus on human works. You don't want to face human works. You don't want to focus on human works, which rob you of your peace, your joy, your self-respect, and your confidence. Human works, drinking when you don't really want to have a drink, doing drugs when you don't really want to do drugs and you don't like the way they make you feel, listening in on a man or a woman that's gossiping about somebody else. You know that's not right. You know you don't want to hear that. Having intimacy in a relationship when you're not ready or you really don't want to yet. Being involved with people in a circle just because everybody's there, but you know in your heart they're not really good people and you don't really want to be affiliated with them, but they're there, so you're there. Everyone's going to the event, so you go to the event. Everyone's going to the nightclub and doing it, so you're doing it. And it's like you end up getting involved in things that you don't want to do because you're just there, right? Works trap you into always struggling to be better so you will feel better about yourself. But if you try to do things on your own, you will be unable to bring about the positive changes that you desire. So I'm going to read that one more time. You are never going to enjoy the promise of the new life, Romans 4 verse 16. Jesus died to give you until you change the way that you think. It's not about what you can do. It's about what Jesus has done for you. Trying to face all the challenges of everyday life can cause you to focus on human works, which rob you of your peace, your joy, your self-respect, and your confidence. Works trap you into always struggling to be better so you will feel better about yourself. But if you try to do things on your own, you'll be unable to bring about the positive changes that you desire. If you have tried everything and are still desperate for peace, trust in Him. Change your thinking and trust God with your life. Trust God with your life. When I went to church that day and was like, God, help me, what did He do? He started removing people from my life. Friends of mine that no longer were supposed to be my friends, because He can hear things that we can't hear. And He can see things that we can't see. And then He would get me away from people that were involved in drugs or drinking all the time, or liars or deceivers, or maybe people that were filled with gluttony, any of the 7 sins. And then He started working with me. It was almost like He put an IV in me with like the water of Christ. And He just put it into my vein and flushed out all the memories and the sadness and the pain from the people. And I noticed when I'd see those people again, I didn't feel that same sadness and pain. I actually felt bad for them because it was like the Lord our God showed me them in a different light. And it all started when I go to church, when I started taking the bread and the blood of Christ, that I start seeing things in a different way, in a different light. And I hope that I'm making sense to you. But when you start trusting God with your life, I'm going to end it here because it could go on forever. But when you start trusting God with your life, He starts taking over and control of your life. When you give yourself selflessly to Him, those people's behaviors, those people's actions, they don't bother you. It doesn't matter, because what you decide to do with your life and what you did with your life and what you did a long time ago with your life, it's what you did. And what you're going to do moving forward is what you're going to do. We come in this world alone and we leave in this world alone.